What are Belizean powder buns? Well, according to Google, powder buns are a lightly sweetened, fluffy, and typically crumbly treat. Some seasoned travelers may even compare it to an English scone. But if you're a foodie like me, you know that powder buns taste nothing like a scone.
You're watching the Bear Pantry Show.
Thank you, Uncle Roger. You can find the recipe in this book that's being sold at my website, bearpantryshow.com, or this book that's being sold at Amazon under my author's name, Barbara McNabb Greenwich. So let's measure out the flour. This is all-purpose flour. We need 4 cups, and I'm just showing you how I level everything off. And here's the 4th cup. To this, I'm adding 1.5 cups of granulated white sugar, and then we need 4 tablespoons of baking powder. To every cup of flour, it's a tablespoon of baking powder, okay? And then 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And I'm not going to use the liquid vanilla. I'm going to use powdered vanilla, 1 teaspoon. Half cup of butter. The eggs are optional, and normally I'll put 2 eggs in this batch, but this time I'm going to put 3, okay? Let me grab a fork and just go ahead and beat the eggs, so when I add it to the dry ingredients, it's all mixed in already. Okay, notice I didn't put any salt. It's because my butter is salted. But if you're using an unsalted butter, you can put half a teaspoon of salt, okay? You can use a whisk for this part, but why dirty something else that we will just have to wash? Just use your hands, as long as they're clean, okay? Let's put the butter, and notice that it's softened but not melted. Get all the butter off of the paper. And no, I can't believe it's not butter. I don't use margarine, I don't use shortening, lard. I just use butter for my powder buns, all right? So all I have to do is get the butter worked in really well into the dry ingredients. I'm cutting the butter into the dry ingredients, and then I'm adding the eggs. And like I said, you don't have to add the eggs, but if you don't add the eggs, you're going to have to use more milk, okay? So before I add any more wet ingredients, I've worked everything in, and then I've added a little bit of milk, and I want to slowly just mix everything in. Anybody keeping tabs on the time so far? I don't think it's taken more than 4 or 5 minutes to bring this together like this. So I'm still working it in because I feel some parts of it are super wet. Notice I have stuff on the counter in these little measuring cups. I'm going to add stuff to the dough after I mix up the dough, okay? Normally powder buns are made plain or with raisins, but lately I've been adding all types of stuff to my powder buns, and each family member has a certain way that they like it, so I have to divide up the dough after I already bring it together. Alright, so I know I'm going to need a little bit more. In the long run, I've added 2 ounces of milk because my 3 eggs were huge. So this feels sticky enough to me. And if I wasn't going to put stuff inside the dough, I would just clean my hands off and pinch the dough according to the sizes I want and just roll them off. But because I'm going to be adding stuff to different portions of the dough, I have to dump it out, get everything off of my fingers. And yes, you can use gloves, but every time I've tried to use gloves, they just kind of hinder me from making my powder buns. Now, how does powder bun differ from cookies? Cookies are like flatter, some of them are crunchy, some of them are soft. This is kind of fluffy on the inside while crunchy on the outside. I like to flip them over and spread peanut butter on the bottom. That way I can get some protein to go with all this sweet, right? I'm going to keep putting more flour. And then what I'm going to do is press this out into the shape of a disc so that I can cut it evenly into 4. I'm going to go ahead and get my hands washed and dried because that's going to make it easier for me. And then grab either a bench scraper, a big knife, or my little tamale spreader right here. Split the dough into 2 first, and then into 4. So 1/4 is going to have one item, another quarter is going to have another item. But then look what I do with this next half. Split it, and then I'm going to split this quarter into half again. Set that aside because that's going to be 2 plain powder buns. Jada and Joshua like the powder bun to be plain because they want to eat it with Velveeta cheese. And we all know Velveeta is not real cheese, but that's what they like. So I'm going to get 6 out of this portion right here, and this is all going to be raisin because this is the way Joe and Jory like it. And if Jory stops by, he can get some. If not, the neighbor across the street is going to be blessed. So I'm just kind of working the dough, and keep adding flour as you need to because you don't want the dough to be too sticky. If your dough is too sticky, the powder buns are going to fall flat and they're going to be more like a cookie, which, you know, if you like it that way, it's not a bad thing, but it's not going to be the true texture of powder buns, right? So I'm going to cut this into 6 equal pieces, as equal as I can go. And I'm not going to grab my scale. I'm just going to squeeze them in my hands and feel them to see which ones are fatter, which ones are skinnier. And then just pinch off from each section to add to another section if the other section was smaller. You guys get it, right? I'm just judging. And by the way, if you don't want to do all the measuring to make the powder buns, you can go ahead and pick up my powder bun dry mix. Don't forget to pick up your powder bun dry mix. And remember, I already have everything in here. All you have to do is add butter, egg, and milk. And you don't even have to add the egg if you're allergic or if you don't like egg, all right? Remember, if you're not going to put the egg, you're going to put a little bit more milk. And if you don't want to form them into the circles, you can make them into bars. You can customize them even more by adding raisin or dried cranberries or milk chocolate chips or white chocolate chips or both of them together or nuts, whatever you want to add, all right? Pick up your dry mix today, guys. Shameless plug, right? You guys want to hear a little story? So I had a lot of videos at my page on how to make Belizean powder bun. The big amount, half the size, quarter the size, brown sugar, all types of stuff, right? Somebody came to one of my videos and said, why would I buy your dry mix when you have all the recipe right here for me to just use? And I got so mad that day. It was a bad day for me. I got mad and I went and I made every video private. After that, I think I unprivated maybe 3 of them. But then I realized that they're all kind of long-winded. And so I wanted to do one just as a tutorial. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to make powder buns here at the page ever again. Well, a video on it. I think I'm just going to leave it to whatever is out already at the page and my dry mix and move on, okay? This is the very first recipe that I ever made when I was in home ec class at St. Catherine's Academy in Belize. So me and powder bun go back a far way, over 40 years for sure. So see how I'm just rolling them off? This is the 2 that are plain, and I'm feeling them to see which one's bigger or smaller. Put a lot of flour on it, guys. Roll the top to get it, well, spread the top to get it smooth, and then you kind of bend it and make it into like a dome. Pinch the bottom and then roll it between your hands. And once it's not sticky anymore, just go ahead and put it on the baking sheet. So on this quarter, I'm adding milk chocolate chips. I really don't like adding the stuff in after the dough is already formed, but because each family member likes it differently, this is what I'm stuck doing, okay? That's why I would prefer to just do my powder bun dry mix, because the dry mix will give you 4, and you could put whatever you want to put in the dry mix and don't have to do it like this. But I measured the full thing for you guys today. If you invite a Belizean to your party and say, can you bring me a batch of powder buns? This is what they're going to bring. They're going to make this amount and bring you like 15 or 16 powder buns. Unless they make them smaller, then they'll get more, but they won't do more than 4 cups of flour to bring to your party. This is a serving. You notice I had white chocolate chips to this batch, right? So I'm getting 16. And I had the wild idea recently to bake these and sell these. I'm like, it was too much work. I'd rather just sell the dry mix. So you can grease the tray or put parchment. And I've done 1 of each. The oven has been preheated to 350. And I'm putting them in. And we're going to set the timer for 25 minutes. You don't want these to bake for more than 30 minutes. Because if you do, they're going to get rock hard. They're going to be rock bun then. So this is 25 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and switch the trays. So the one on the middle tray is now going to go on the top so it can get lightly kissed and brown, and the other one's going to go on the bottom so that the bottom can get crispy. And we're going to go 5 more minutes, and here they are. They're done. Just grab them from the oven and quickly remove them. Don't let them sit here too long. Remove them and put them on the wire rack. See how gentle I'm being with them? I don't want them to fall apart on me. They're so soft. separate them. And they will touch each other, but that's fine. These are the ones with the raisin and the two plain ones. I'm covering them up because there's a fly in the house. And once they're no longer warm to the touch, go ahead and wrap them individually and put them away. Or put them in a cake dish.
This is the Beth Andrews Show.